Russian accidental friendly fire eliminated 65 soldiers, and they also intercepted 21.7% of their own planes. At the same time, Ukraine is planning to hit Moscow with modernized missiles, US is bringing nuclear carriers closer to Russia, and there are rumors that Prigozhin might still be alive. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, we have this billboard in one of Russian kindergartens where saying, "Welcome kids, the new kindergarten year starts September 1st, we're excited to meet you all." And in the very middle it says, "Join the ranks of the Russian army. Protect your motherland, protect the regime, and destroy those neo-Nazis in Ukraine." And the main question here is this propaganda targeting kids or their parents? Let me know in the comments, what do you think? And speaking about the Russian military, this Saturday I'm planning to release a very interesting and maybe even a little bit controversial video, so if you don't want to miss it, can you please subscribe to my channel and also like this video. You can also follow me on Instagram just to see how I live outside of YouTube, the link is down below. But okay, and now let's talk about outstanding progress in the Ukrainian military industry, and then we'll talk about the east of Ukraine and the south of the country. And first of all, Ukraine is planning to use modernized missiles to now target Moscow, and the missiles we're talking about are called Neptune, which previously were used to intercept aerial targets. And as we speak, Ukrainian engineers are trying to modernize it, so it will be using the infrared sensor, and they'll be using the pre-uploaded images of the targets flying above the territory of assumingly Russia, looking for similarities, and as soon as the target is confirmed, it will start its descent. But as for now, the range of these missiles is only 400 kilometers, which might not yet be enough to reach Moscow, and its speed is only 900 kilometers per hour. In comparison, the one which Russians have, Onyx hypersonic missiles, it reaches more than 3000 kilometers per hour. And speaking about some other interesting development, Ukrainians were previously using already wooden drones to hit Russian targets, including the most recent attack against the airfield in Pskov. And the reason why they're wooden is so it will be much more complicated for Russian raiders to notice them. Next we have this video which shows us that Ukrainians are already using their own developed turrets called Shabля, and approximately at this very moment it is estimated to be 30 of them. And speaking about the drones, Ukraine is now also developing their own, including the marine ones, ground drones and aerial drones, and the ones which will be flying by air, they can reach the potential distance up to 1000 kilometers. But wait, there is more. Ukraine also resumed the production of their own mortars, because the factories located in the east of Ukraine were shut down since the beginning of the invasion. Well, like I said, now they started resuming the production once again, and it is estimated that already 600 of them left to the front lines. And before we talk about yet even more attacks against the territory of Russia, just a couple more words about the Western military support to Ukraine. And first of all, according to President Zelensky, Ukraine allegedly agreed with its Western partners about supplying approximately 50 to 60 F-16 planes to Ukraine. Next we have the country of Germany, which is pledging 10 Leopard 1 tanks to Ukraine, reconnaissance drones, 1 radar and 13 million rounds of ammunition. But most importantly, the US is transferring 50 of its nuclear-carrying F-35s closer to Russia, and allegedly they'll be stationed in the United Kingdom. Some people compare this event to the resume of the Cold War, but I mean, Putin wanted to invade Ukraine with no consequences, which is going to be impossible, so here are your consequences, Mr. Vladimir Putin. But nevertheless, the most unexpected news for today is that Wagner-related Telegram channels, they started spreading this video of Yevgeny Prigozhin, claiming that potentially he might be alive. The video is basically saying that Prigozhin is driving around Africa, it is the second half of August, and those people who are speculating whether he is alive or not, they should just stop doing it and focus on their own lives. I still personally do not believe that he is alive, but I mean, there is always 1% chance. And ultimately we have yet another extremely controversial person in Russia, Igor Girkin, who recently went to jail for his extremely extremist statements. and so recently he made even one more. He said that he wants to run for the presidency of Russia 2024. Looks like that Prigozhin will now have one more friend to talk with. Right before we talk about the situation in the east and the south of Ukraine, let me just give you a couple quick words about Russian territory once again being attacked. And first of all, we have to make a stop in the capital of Russia, Moscow, where this last morning even more drones were spotted flying towards the center. Next we have the region of Bryansk, which is extremely close to the territory of Ukraine, and first at night some drones were spotted by the locals, but then the very next morning even more drones were spotted flying above the city. And just in general, since the beginning of Russian invasion, Ukrainians were able to destroy at least 24 Russian planes using such drones, not including the ones which were destroyed just a couple of days ago in Pskov, which is, to be honest, is a pretty big number because planes are extremely expensive. And just in total, in this year alone, Ukrainians attacked the territory of Russia and Crimea using drones at least 190 times. But okay, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east of Ukraine, and today I have a lot of combat footage for you, and then we'll finalize everything in the south of the country. So, first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians and Ukrainians continue to clash along Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line with no reported success so far, but Russians, as you can see from this map, they were able to contest some territory to the south of Kreminna. Next we have this combat footage which shows us the fights between Russians and Ukrainians inside trenches. To be honest, in my personal opinion, this is one of the scariest ones, but the most intense one to watch. And also some combat footage from the inside of small settlements, where there's pretty much a city warfare. And as you already know, my videos get restricted just for showing the remains of the plane, so there's no way in the world YouTube will allow this footage on my channel. Long story short, if you want to see the full versions and are definitely worth seeing, please go ahead and check them on my Patreon. Link is down below and there's still 1 week of free access. Going more to the south, to the city of Bakhmut, there is still daily combat activities by Ukrainians trying to assault the defenses of Russians, and they're getting more and more successful recently. In confirmation of this, they shared with us this another video from the inside of Bakhmut. And to the south of Bakhmut, there is this settlement called Avdiivka, where Ukrainians recently did another tank raid, successfully breaching Russian defenses and forcing some of them to retreat. And according to Anna Malyar, she confirms that the most intense fighting in the east is happening to the south of Bakhmut, in the cities such as, for example, above mentioned Andriivka and also Klishchiivka. And as for now, as a result of these combat activities, Ukrainians were able to liberate a small territory to the south of Ozaryanivka, as you can see from this map. As we move along the eastern front lines, Ukrainians even shared with us this video of the destruction of the Russian military base using smart guided missiles JDAM. And as we move even more to the south to so-called second Avdiivka, along its front lines, Ukrainians were able to liberate some territory to the east of Nevelske, as you can see from this map. And ultimately, as we get closer to another familiar city called Vuhledar, Ukrainian artillery using the cluster munition was able to destroy a large mortar firing position of Russians to the north of Mikilske. And so yes, now let's finalize everything in the south of Ukraine, and then we'll talk about the accidental friendly fire by Russians. And first of all, coming from Crimea, the local residents reported once again loud noises and some drone sounds which were coming from Feodosia, also as you can see from this video. Moving closer to Kherson region, Ukrainians using HIMARS were able to destroy a large artillery firing position of Russians and also a self-propelled system called Msta located to the south of Oleshki. And referring once again to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, they claim that the small unit of Ukrainian forces were able to breach the western defenses of Russians in Verbove and briefly even enter the city. And as a result of this, as you can see from this map, Ukrainians were able to decontest some area to the west of Verbove. Moving closer to the east, to another city which we were talked about a lot last week, which is called Urozhaine, Ukrainians were able to destroy an assault group of Russians along with their armored vehicle to the south of this settlement. And at this moment, even the Western media sources and military representatives, they confirmed that Ukrainians indeed breached the main lines of defenses of Russians in the Zaporozhye region, and in case Ukrainians will not stop and continue to use this momentum, they will most likely be able to expand the liberation and take back significant territories. At first, for example, it was the city of Robotyne, with the next goal of Ukrainians being the city of Verbove, and this is exactly where they're going right now. After this, the next goal key city will be most likely Tokmak, and after this city is already liberated, which supposedly needs to happen a little bit faster than before, since Russian defenses are breached. The next key and pretty much final cities in this stage of the counteroffensive will be Berdyansk, Mariupol potentially, and Melitopol. And to help you visualize everything, right now Ukrainians are attacking in Robotyne front line and Velika Novosilka front line. In case they're successful, they will be able to liberate next Verbove, with the next goal being Tokmak, and the ultimate cities in this stage of the counteroffensive are Melitopol right here, Berdyansk right here, and then maybe even potentially Mariupol. So as you can see, at this very moment, Ukrainians were able to finally breach Russian lines of defenses, which is now confirmed by even more sources than just Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, including the ones in the West. The pace of the counteroffensive of Ukrainians in the south picks up the speed a little bit, and to make things worse, Russians, in this chaotic turn of events, they continue to spontaneously and accidentally eliminate their own forces using their friendly fire. The very first incident happened in Robotyne, whenever Ukrainians started to advance fast, making Russians sporadically retreat from this settlement, and then those Russians to the south of them, they thought that these were advancing Ukrainians. They did not have time to communicate because they were running apparently so fast, so they used the artillery. Apparently it was a friendly fire. 32 Russians are severely injured, 19 of them are eliminated. The next event happened in Crimea, in one of Russian military bases, where Russian soldiers were peacefully sleeping at night, and then apparently there was some kind of a diversion, or maybe somebody was sleepwalking, and 14 Russian soldiers were eliminated in their sleep. But besides the human force, Russians also eliminate their military vehicles, including the most expensive ones, helicopters and planes. And reportedly, since the beginning of this war, every fifth Russian aerial vehicle, or 21.7% of them, they pretty much were destroyed as a result of either pilot error, or maybe some mechanical defects, or, once again, the friendly fire. And all of these cases do not involve Ukrainian participation at all. So as you can see, Russians in Ukraine, they do not only fight against Ukrainians, they can also expect some backstabbing and ambushing from their own comrades. All of this just to help Putin fulfill his crazy goals. And so yeah, just once again, this Saturday I'm planning to release a very interesting and potentially controversial video, so if you don't want to miss it, just please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. The absolutely best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member and unlock some channel perks, or simply use the PayPal link. Everything can be found on the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи. Beware there are scammers in the comments. Please follow me on Instagram, and see you tomorrow.